It's time to chill out and get ready for a mediocre Q&A live stream. If you're old enough, grab yourself your favorite adult beverage, and if you're not, stick with apple juice. Put your feet up and relax. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. And now let's cue up the intro music. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the HVACR videos live stream. It's me, Chris. I'm your host. Got, as usual, got a bunch of stuff we're going to talk about. Different things on my list right here. And how's the audio coming through? Is it coming through okay? Is it coming through really loud? I'm just curious how it's all working out. Is it just normal as usual? I made some changes, and of course, whenever I make changes, okay, it comes through okay. All right, cool. Yeah, I made some changes, and of course, right before the stream, everything fell off the map, and it was a mess. I've been slowly upgrading my office, and you see all that stuff. It's kind of a work in progress. It's not done, all the stuff behind me, but I got a new desk, and then I got a new monitor. I got like a really wide monitor, so I only have one monitor in my office now, and I can partition it into 3 different screens. And just getting used to everything. Here's my problem is that I have way too much stuff going on in my life. And so when I make a change, it just throws a wrench in everything, right? I don't have time to sit down and learn how to do every single aspect of this computer stuff that I do. I just kind of wing it. And then when I run into problems, that's when, I start getting frustrated and life happens, but it is good. So, interesting. Dave Johnson. So you said it's, oh, okay. No, I think it's right. Are you saying the audio is messed up on your end, Dave? Interesting. Yeah, everybody else says it's good. But anyways, Keith Peterson, thank you very much for that super chat. That is very nice. That is very much appreciated, my good friend. Thank you. Michael Lingfelter says, can you use testo probes with Measure Quick? Yeah, you can actually. You definitely can. I think that the way the testo probes work and the field piece probes is a little bit different, but I'm 100% sure you can still use the testo probes with Measure Quick. I just think there might be some different steps to setting them up or something like that. But certainly, yeah, go right ahead. You can set it all up and do your thing. You know, personally, I don't use the testo probes. I know a lot of people that love them, absolutely love them. I've just always been a field piece person. They work well for me, and the wireless range, uh, when I used to, or when I was testing them years ago, was much better on the field piece probe. So I've just stuck with those. So that's just been my preference. So, cool. All right, reading through here. Okay, cool. Right on. And Jason Johnson's one of the moderators in here. Thank you very much for promoting that stuff. Jason's putting links to my email, my website, all that good stuff inside the chat. So if you're watching this on other platforms, you may or may not see the chat going on. It's all good. I say this every time. It doesn't benefit me differently either way what platform you watch it on. But if you come to the YouTube side, there's a whole group of people in there having a great chat and kind of going back and forth. There's conversations outside of what I'm talking about, and it's a whole community. That's a really neat thing about these live streams and all this, is the ability to communicate with everybody. So if I miss your questions or don't get to your questions, feel free to shoot me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com, and or put your questions in all capital letters or caps lock, because it helps myself to be able to see them as they're going by. But a lot of times there's a lot of stuff going through there and it's hard for me to understand it. So it's been a while since I've done a stream. Still kind of catching up on life. Work's been super, I mean, I don't want to say work has been super busy, but it has been busy for me because there's been a lot of field work that I have to do and administrative work that I have to do. So it makes it really difficult. And then we're also working with a new apprentice. So it's kind of a challenge to make sure that I'm out in the field enough when I really need to be in the office a bunch. It's just this gamble. And those of you that run businesses, you totally understand, like there's just a million different things always going on. You know, I always get questions from people, you know, what's the best way to get new customers? What's the best way to run your business? Guys, I am the worst business person to ask those questions to. Okay. My business is ran on hopes and dreams, and we're lucky that it's worked out the way that it's worked out. So I don't want people to get this false hope or false idea that I'm like this amazing business person. I'm not. I'm genuinely not. I'm just a guy winging it. I really am. So let me see what we got going on in the chat. Thoughts on propane standalone units? A big retailer is trying out those opposed to a rack. You know, it's a really common thing. A lot of my restaurants deal with propane refrigerators, R290, hydrocarbon refrigerant. It's pretty common. You know, what do I think about a building full of those? I mean, it is what it is. You know, it's really not that big of a deal. It's just another refrigerator, as opposed to using an entire rack, you know, to cool 10 different cases versus having, you know, 15 different individual refrigerators. I mean, it's going to add a lot more heat load to the building for sure. But then again, you know, you might have plenty of capacity in the building to cool that. So who knows? I mean, I think it's kind of silly when people go in with a crap ton of self-contained refrigerators when they can put a rack system in. But at the same time, if the customer is not a proactive customer that's maintaining their equipment, you know, that can be a problem when you have multiple individual refrigerators, right? You're going to get a lot of plugged up condensers and different things. So, you know, I mean, there's takeaways from both different aspects of it. On a rack system, you're going to have centralized controls. You're going to have, you know, centralized compressors and stuff like that. So, I mean, there's goods and bads on all sides. You know, I like rack systems. Now, I don't deal with parallel rack systems, but I deal with like multiplex systems. You know, I like the rack systems, but one of the downsides is, you know, you have to work with, as the equipment starts to get really old, the cases get really old, then you're dealing with a lot of bad copper. It leads to headaches, you know, and just, I have a bunch of my restaurants right now that have remote refrigeration systems that are multiplexed. And man, they need to just rip all that out and start over. They really do, because everything is just so beat down. We've done, you know, emergency repairs so many times that this equipment is just butchered to beyond belief. And, you know, the problem is that it costs so much money to change out the equipment and downtime that they don't want to do it. So they keep just saying, throw another Band-Aid on it, get it going, throw another Band-Aid on it. It's just like, at some point you just have to be like, I can't fix it anymore. You know, it's just kind of a mess. What do I think of Sub-Zero build as commercial? I heard they have many problems. You know, Sub-Zero, I don't work on a lot of Sub-Zero equipment. I've worked on it in the past. I mean, it wasn't that bad when I worked on it in the past. Everything's going to have growing pains as it's a new Sub-Zero is not necessarily a new brand these days. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. You're saying Sub-Zero. I thought you meant Zero Zone. Huh. Sub-Zero, that's the high-end residential company, right? And you're thinking build as commercial? I don't know what you mean by that, Dale. I don't understand that. Are you saying that Sub-Zero is making commercial equipment now? The high-end residential company? Question mark. Let's see. Jason Johnson says the Testo app is way better than the Field Piece one, but thankfully we have choices. Fair point. I don't use the Field Piece app, so I can't attest to whether or not it's a good app or not. Marty, how you doing, man? Thank you very much. Right on. It's awesome that you're in here, buddy. All right. What tools do you need to get started being a tech? Neil, it's not so much the tools. It's find yourself a company, find out what kind of work you're going to do, and then the company should be able to guide you on what tools you're going to need to start out. I would be very cautious about buying a bunch of tools and then going to work for someone and finding out that none of the tools that you bought are going to apply to the kind of work that you're going to do. So I highly suggest reaching out to the companies local to you, find out what kind of work you're going to do, and then kind of ask them where you should get started. Once you get an idea what kind of work you're going to be doing, different areas. Like in my area, we provide vacuum pumps, torches, recovery machines, heavy big ticket items. And then the technicians provide hand tools, a tool bag, service gauges, like the consumable items, the things that get lost and left behind all the time. For the most part, the technicians provide, and then we provide the big ticket items. So I'd hate for you to go buy all that stuff and then realize, oh shoot, this company provides that stuff. So that's where you want to be careful about like spending a bunch of money on tools, especially as you're just starting in the industry. Am I speaking at the symposium or enjoying it as a student? Great question there, Freon Leon. So let's go ahead and talk about this. As we're coming towards the end of the year, we have two big industry events in Orlando, Florida this year. We have the HVACR training symposium from HVAC school. And then right after that, like 2 days after that, we have the AHR Expo also in Orlando, Florida. I will be at both events. At this time, I haven't signed up to be a speaker at the symposium. I'm just going to be enjoying it and going to the symposium myself. My wife is going to be going to the symposium and to AHR. Well, she might not go to all of the symposium because there might not be much for her to do there. But my wife, who's on social media as HVACR wife, is going to be at the AHR Expo with me. She's going to be working behind the camera so that way I can focus a little bit more on the expo, meeting people, and doing different stuff. So that's going to be kind of nice having her there to help me. But yeah, I plan on being at both events. If you've never been to the AHR Expo, it is an amazing industry event with sometimes in previous years up to 30,000 people over 3 days. It's insane, the turnout that comes in. Mondays are usually the busiest day. Tuesdays are a little bit lighter, and Wednesdays, the show is just almost empty. Everybody's just kind of getting ready to go home because it's been a long week, basically. But it's not just the expo. At the expo, you've got tool manufacturers, equipment manufacturers, training organizations doing classes, showing what they have, new products. There's like manufacturers that bring in entire giant pieces of equipment. I've seen chillers in there. I've seen boxcar units in there. They're like, it's crazy what some of these people will bring into these events. So as the event gets closer, right, for the symposium, I'll just be at the symposium. For AHR, as the event gets closer, I'll start announcing the times that I'm going to be at the different booths. If you guys happen to see me, stop by, say hi. Usually have some sort of swag with me, stickers or something like that. Take a picture, whatever you want to do. But after the show, right, not only do you have the awesome expo that's going on with educational sessions and all sorts of stuff like that, then after the expo, there's usually like industry parties, get-togethers, all sorts of fun stuff. So if you've never been to an AHR Expo, I highly suggest you consider going. This year is going to be in Orlando. Next year is going to be in Las Vegas, Nevada, which is even better because it's only about 3.5 to 4 hours away from my house, and I can actually drive to Vegas as opposed to having to fly across the country. But I will be at the HVACR Training Symposium and at the AHR Expo. So if you want more information, feel free to shoot me an email, hvacrvideos@gmail.com. You can also look online and find all the information. So let me see, reading through the chat right now. reading through here, seeing what I'm missing. Getting into the commercial side of the trade, any recommendations for tools? You know, it just depends on what your company is going to want you to buy. Okay. You know, I mean, you can see the tools that I use in my videos. I love the field piece tools. I love Milwaukee stuff, but it's all brand preference, really. It's really what you're comfortable using and what's available to you. You know, I'd second guess telling someone to go buy all this field piece stuff if they don't have an ability to purchase it locally or find a place that can repair it for them if there's problems. I mean, and that goes for any tool brand, right? Testo, Fluke, any of that stuff. So let's make sure that it's stuff that you can get easily, you know, and you don't have to bend over backwards to get it to you. So that's another thing to consider too with your tools. But it's really just a brand preference, really, what you like. I mean, you can clearly see in my videos what I use, and I just happen to like those tools. Now, if you are interested in purchasing any tools, you can definitely go over to truetechtools.com. There's an affiliate program set up with them. If you use my offer code Big Picture, one word, you get a discount at checkout, and I get a small commission from that. So that's a great way to help support the channel. If you are looking for any tools, again, that's truetechtools.com. All right. I've gone through the chat quite a bit here. If I missed your guys' stuff, I just scrolled on down to the bottom because there's a lot of stuff in there. Do I take pictures with techs if they see me at supply houses? I mean, I guess I still don't understand the concept of people wanting to take a picture with me because I'm just a normal person. But I mean, whatever floats your boat. If you see me, sure, say what's up. All right. They claim that they're commercial, says Dale Marr, the Sub-Zero ones. Yeah, I don't know about that. That's very interesting. So Roman says that tools are geared to what you're working on daily in the commercial work. Definitely True Tech Tools. Yeah. So Roman would be a really good person to make that point. Roman's also in the commercial side. Roman happens to do the VRF stuff, you know, and the heavy commercial stuff, right? And, you know, he's going to have specialized tools. The point I'm making is about tools, but he's going to have specialized tools that are geared for what he's working on. And that's the same for me. Commercial is a very vague term when it comes to commercial because I do commercial, but I tend to do more light commercial. I do ice machines, refrigerators, air conditioners, exhaust fans, right? I don't work on chillers. I don't work on parallel rack systems. You know, I don't work on boxcar units on top of roofs. Like I don't have those. So I'm not going to have the specialized tools that you would do with that kind of the, you know, in that side of the commercial part of our industry, right? So commercial is such a vague term. And I'm not trying to single you out for saying that, you know, you're getting into this or that. It's just that I'm saying, don't go spend a bunch of money on tools until you know exactly what you're going to be doing, because you don't want to get stuck with a bunch of stuff, right? I can tell a funny story. And again, it's all fine and dandy, but it was fun and, you know, had a good laugh about it. But years ago, I had an apprentice show up and he was so excited to come work for us. And he came in and he was so proud to show us that he got a tool bag, right? And in that tool bag, he showed it to me and I said, hey man, don't take offense to this, but I'm going to take some stuff out of your tool bag and I'm going to set it right here. And I want you to leave it at the shop because you're not going to use that, right? Pulls out a claw hammer, you know, pulling out all these big tools, these big giant wrenches that we'll never use, you know, and that's what the point I'm trying to make is he went and spent a bunch of money buying all this stuff because he thought he was going to use it, when in reality, we didn't use half the crap that he had in his bag, right? So what I deal with in the restaurant refrigeration and air conditioning that I deal with, like I have some specific tools that I need. Also, I don't like to have a bunch of tools because I like to have one tool that can do multiple tasks, right? Every tool has a hammer in, right? Now, I know some people freak out when I take a pair of lineman pliers and I use it as a hammer to hit something. I mean, but for me, as long as I know the tool can handle it, then I don't have to carry a hammer in my bag if I can use a pair of lineman pliers to kind of tap on something, right? Now, of course, you want to be careful about certain tools, right? I don't necessarily want to take some really nice Knipex, you know, pipe wrenches and just beat on those, right? Even though they probably could handle it. Yeah, they don't have a lot of weight to them, you know, so we're not going to do that. But that's the point I'm making is you just want to be careful about buying a bunch of tools because you may or may not use them. John Deere fan, can the Heatcraft Intelligent Controller work on medium and large profile coils? Yeah, definitely can. The Intelligent Control System from Heatcraft, they have it for their big, giant industrial style coolers and freezers. Definitely going to take different components, different expansion valves, stuff like that in the system. But yeah, it can work on the higher end stuff too. You can, I mean, if you really wanted to, it would be way overkill. I should probably do this because I have a universal intelligent controller. I could totally like retrofit my garage refrigerator and put it on that, and it'll run fine. I can get an EEV for it and set it up. I mean, the sky is kind of the limit. As long as the refrigerant profiles are in the intelligent display, you can set it up for almost anything and do whatever you want to do with it. What thermal imaging camera do I use? I really like the HIC Micro products. They're relatively inexpensive and they're pretty high quality. My personal preference. Again, you can get those over at TrueTech Tools. But the HIC Micro stuff is really good. Now, I have a higher end HIC Micro camera. Most people don't necessarily need to buy the fancy one that I have. I think I have like an M30 or something. It's definitely not the highest one that they make, but it's a pretty expensive camera. You definitely don't need that. You can get thermal imaging cameras. Now, it really depends. For the thermal imaging cameras, do you want a standalone camera or do you want a camera that plugs into your phone? You know, because there's multiple different options. Now, me personally, because I film my content, I kind of like having the standalone camera in a way, but there's sometimes that I like the one that plugs in through the little dongle in the bottom of your phone. Sometimes that's perfectly good for what we do too. So it really depends on what you're using the thermal imaging camera for. Now, if you're doing, you know, home performance work and you're really going in and you're looking to find out insulation inadequacies in a wall, if you're looking for bare spots, if you're looking for heat infiltration, you know, that kind of stuff, you might want to get a higher end camera. Maybe it just depends, right? So you really need to do your research. Again, I'll tell you that over at TrueTech Tools, they have a lot of great information. And if you go browsing through their website, I'm pretty confident it should be on their website. Eric Kaiser, who works for TrueTech Tools, has done a series talking about thermal imaging cameras. I know he did it at the symposium at one point, so I'm sure it's out there. But I'm pretty sure if you go to their website, you can find some of those videos where Eric Kaiser from TrueTech Tools goes in depth about thermal imaging cameras, what you really need to be concerned about, and what the real considerations you need to make when you're purchasing one. So just be cautious. Don't go buy something just because it's the most expensive one. Do some research, find out if it's actually going to work for you. Reading through the chat right now. What am I missing? Again, there's a lot of stuff going through the chat right now. If I'm missing the comments, feel free to post them again, or you can shoot me an email. Okay. A lineman hammer. Exactly. Gregory Montoya. Am I being convinced U.S. equipment manufacturers residential are paying tech catch up compared to the Asian counterparts? Okay. So that's an interesting question, Danny. I would say in a way, sure, we can argue that some of the United States-based residential equipment manufacturers are a little bit behind on the technology that they're bringing into their equipment. As opposed to what I mean, they're getting caught up at the moment because everybody's getting really caught up with technology right now. But for the longest time, yes, we were slow to adapt to electronic expansion valves in our residential light commercial. We were very slow to adapt those, right? And inverter-based systems, they're becoming mainstream these days because of government regulations that are basically mandating that our equipment be more and more efficient. So the only way to make a lot of our equipment and more efficient is to upgrade to higher end technologically advanced equipment. In that is problems. And here's the issue. So to answer your question, yes, I do think for a long time, the US manufacturers were a little bit slow to adopt to the new stuff. At the same time, what we had worked, okay? With technology comes problems. It's inevitable, right? With any piece of equipment is going to come problems. But with new equipment and new technology comes problems. One of the biggest problems that we have, especially in my market, which is Southern California, okay? But generally in the United States, especially on the light commercial, now you get into the high-end grocery store stuff, you get into the high-end industrial stuff, and they may or may not do a good job of this. But my customers and my market, we do not have proper power conditioning. And what I mean by that is we do not have devices on a grand scale protecting our building from power problems. Okay. They do exist, but a lot of customers don't want to purchase that stuff and or they're not being told to purchase it. Manufacturers come to them and say, hey, we have this new technology. You should try it out. Put in our new system. For instance, in the last 10 years, there was an influx of multi-speed indoor blower motors on commercial air conditioners. This is super easy to talk about, okay? So they'd put a variable frequency drive on a indoor blower motor and essentially make it a 2-speed indoor blower motor to stage it so that way when first stage calls, the blower motor slows down, but when second stage calls, it speeds up. Because for years, we operated our equipment with a blower motor for our indoor fan that ran and moved enough air for both compressors. Okay. So that way, when first stage came on, you had 5 tons. The second stage came on, you had 10 tons. The indoor blower motor always moved 10 tons of air. Okay. So when it staged down to only first stage, then in theory, we were moving too much air through the system, not getting the efficiency we needed. There can be an argument to be made about that, but still. We put in variable frequency drives. Manufacturers adopted those across the line. All manufacturers put variable frequency drives on their commercial equipment. Indoor blower motors were multi-stage air volume for the indoor blower motors. And then they started losing variable frequency drives left and right because they installed them in the units in horrible places and they didn't have proper power conditioning on them. We'd have a power outage. When the power would go back on, there'd be surges and different things, and it would just fry the VFD. It would cause problems. And so what I say is with technology, there's always going to be growing pains. Now, as consumers, as technicians, as business owners, if we educated our customers on all the problems that they can have, I'll be honest with you, a lot of them would never have upgraded the equipment, right? Because if they knew that in a perfect world, they should have installed that VFD down in an equipment room, mechanical room, all these different things, put proper line reactors on the VFDs to condition the power better. That would have cost a lot of money and the customers would have second guessed putting all that money into the new equipment. With new technology, especially in the residential side, for instance, at my house, okay, I installed a Carrier Infinity system about a year and a half ago, okay? And for the most part, cross my fingers. I know everybody says it was all going to break. It was going to be nothing but problems. For the most part, I haven't had any problems. I had one communication circuit board that wasn't allowing me to connect to my system with my smartphone. I changed a communication circuit board. That was it. That was so far the only problem I've really had. Okay. But there has been some issues. Okay. But it wasn't my equipment's fault. I started to notice communication issues left and right. Like I would get a communication loss issue, email. It seems like 2-3 times a night. And it's like, what the heck's going on? So what I realized was that I have, voltage monitors on my system, and my voltage monitors were surge protectors. They were doing their job. They were shutting down the equipment because I had high voltage, I had low voltage all the time. And I can go in and look at the history, and my surge protectors essentially are doing what they're supposed to be doing, but they're causing communication losses because they shut off my outdoor unit, and then my indoor unit, then it sends a communication loss email. And it's like, hey, there's a communication loss. And you think there's something wrong with the equipment when in reality, in my situation, no. The surge protector voltage monitors were basically shutting the system down because the parameters that I set them for, we were going outside. We were going high voltage, low voltage, intermittently doing different stuff. And it's all because we have a horrible power grid where I'm at. And it's just a mess. Okay. So with any system, there's always going to be some problems. Again, Keith Peterson, thank you so very much for that super chat, my friend. That was very, very awesome. So thank you. Thank you. Let's see. What else do we got going on in the chat right now? Reading through the chat, seeing what I'm missing here. Okay. Yep, that's right. In my latest video, I zoom over to my worker and he's wearing a sweatshirt that shows my refrigeration brand. This is just a concern because per info, is this purposeful or should it be blurred? Oh yeah. Look, there's a lot of things in my videos that I used to try to hide my company name, but it's okay, guys. I appreciate you letting me know there that I did let it slip, but it slipped a bunch of times. And that's not something like I don't purposely go out there and just put my company name out there, but everybody knows what it is and they figured it out. So yeah, you see it on my uniforms from time to time. It is what it is. So, but thank you for thinking about me like that. So let's see what else we got. Okay, cool. Reading through here. Hudson says that he saw that we shipped out his hat today. Yeah, so my wife processed a bunch of orders today from the merch store, and you probably would have gotten a shipping email with a tracking number. I believe she even dropped them off at the post office today, or she might do it tomorrow, but she processed them all today and packaged them up for sure. So you just had a restaurant with a 200-gallon water heater down, hoping they will take the bid. Oh, right on, man. Yeah, hopefully they do. Yeah, that's funny. Okay, I'm reading through here right now. Got a couple things on my list. Let's get to this, okay? So wanted to tell a little funny story. So on Thanksgiving, just had Thanksgiving at my house, hung out with the family, all that stuff. Of course, leftovers go in the fridge. I've got this giant commercial 2-door, giant 48-inch wide refrigerator in my garage. It's just like a drink fridge. We throw leftovers and extra food and stuff. So after Thanksgiving, we threw all of our leftovers in there. Flash forward to 2 days after Thanksgiving. I was getting ready. It was the day that I was going to make my ham and bean soup. Every year, one of my favorite things about the holidays is this family tradition we have is I make a ham and bean soup, right? So you take the ham bone with like a cup of meat, you put it in a crock pot, you put some white beans, you let it, run for 8 hours or whatever, and it makes an amazing soup, right? With a bunch of other stuff too. It's not that simple, but so it was funny because I went out there to go get my ham bone. It was super early in the morning and I was going to get everything ready. And I walk out to my garage, and as I open my garage door, I could see light in a weird place in my garage. And I was like, what is that? And I walk out, and my refrigerator door is wide open on my refrigerator, like wide open. And the light was shining across the garage. And it was just weird because 6:30 on a Sunday morning, and it's like, what the heck? Yeah, I know. Why am I up at 6:30 on Sunday? Because I just wake up super early and it never stops. Once you get old, you just wake up like whatever. So anyways, long story short, I go inside the house and I asked my wife, because I was drinking the night before and I did go out to the fridge to get another beer. So I remember going to my wife and I go, because we have a camera in the garage. I said, can you check the camera footage and tell me if I left the refrigerator door open? And she looks at it. She goes, no, it was one of the kids. And I was like, oh, okay. So I went and woke up the kid that left the refrigerator door open. They were all confused on a Sunday at 6:30. And I was like, come on out in the garage. I got something to show you. And went out into the garage, and it was an accident, but it is what it is. It was kind of funny though with the camera footage, because my daughter walked out there, opened the fridge, grabbed something, and then just walked away, and the door was wide open. That was like midnight. So anyways, it had been sitting like that for like 6 hours. Everything in there was warm. Luckily, it was after Thanksgiving, right? And we didn't have any food that we were going to make. It was just leftovers, and we were kind of burnt out on the leftovers anyways, except for my ham bone. But it was all warm. Like, it was all warm. And I wasn't even going to trust it. Just threw it all away. But that was pretty funny. I had a service call at my own house, and it was because we left the door open. Like, go figure, right? Number one. Let's see. Brian says he wakes up at 6:30 every morning to go to the bathroom. That's funny. That's about right. If I'm up at 6:30 on Sunday morning to go to the bath. Oh, wait, no. What does it say? Steve says, if I'm up at 6:30 on Sunday morning, you're still up. Yeah. I'm old, man. I go to bed super early. Yeah, exactly. Reading through here right now. I don't have a door alarm. No, I don't have a door alarm, and I don't have door switches or any of that stuff. Even though I have a KE2 on there and I could totally put in a door alarm or whatever, I could. I just don't. It's just one of those things I've never made a priority. Michael Proctor, I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you doing, my good friend? Okay. So I'm going to cross that one off my list. Already talked about AHR and the symposium. Those are both coming up. If you guys don't have your tickets or you want to go, you definitely need to look into it, because rooms are selling out, flights are booking up, and all that good stuff. Am I trying to move out of the field to put less wear on my body? At 33, you're wondering when you should start worrying about it. At 33, I think you're pretty good still. You still got some time. Okay. Is that something that I consider in the future? I don't know, because while I know that my body's getting tired of all this work that I do and how much I beat it up, I genuinely like working. I mean, I would like to say that if all of a sudden I came into a bunch of money and I didn't have to work ever again in my life, I feel like I'd still want to work in some aspect, because there's something about being out there, interacting with people, communicating with customers. I genuinely like that part. The part that I don't like about what I do is running a business. Running a business sucks. Don't get me wrong. There's perks, but there's frustrating moments. And that's my frustrating part. What are some honest pros and cons of being an HVAC technician? Okay. Some honest pros and cons. Cons, depending on where you work and what side of the industry. It all depends on the different parts of the industry you get into. Let's say you get into supermarket work. The hours are insane. your quality of life is diminished, like absolutely diminished. I mean, the overtime potential though on the supermarket side is hands down amazing, right? They'll let you work until you die, basically. Okay, most companies, depends on who you work for. But most supermarket companies, it's kind of ridiculous. Like when you talk to other supermarket techs and you find out how long, how many hours they've worked straight, how many, I'm sure people in the chat can tell us right now, they'll be chiming in that I've worked 33 hours straight, or like all this crazy stuff, right? It's insane. Nobody should ever be working that long. But you know, in what I do, you know, what are the cons? I mean, we have a slow season, not like crazy slow, but it slows down a little bit. I enjoy the slow season. The pros, you know, being able to use your brain, having to troubleshoot things, trying to figure out why humans do what humans do, right? That's a lot of my job, figuring out why in the heck there's a steak knife in the back of the coil, like stabbed in the coil and all the refrigerants leaked out. And then you got to figure out like, okay, not only do you have to change the coil or repair it, but you got to figure out why someone stabbed that steak knife in there. Oh, it was iced up. Okay. Why was it icing up? Then you got to figure out that. And, you know, so it's solving a lot of puzzles in this industry, to say the least, right? Dealing with a lot of red tape, you got to deal with it. So there's good and bad to it all. You know, it just depends. It just depends on what you want to do. You know, we got to work in, depending on what sector, like I work in the light commercial refrigeration side dealing with restaurants. So I'm climbing into tiny little attics. I'm working in a tiny little reach-in refrigerator. You have to be able to climb into things. You have to be able to, I was sitting on top of some shelving today inside a walk-in cooler while I was brazing up, you know, some stuff and getting it electrical ran and all that. So, I mean, when it comes to your size, your weight, all that stuff factors into the part of the industry you want to get into. If you're a really big person, then you might have a hard time working on some of these tiny reach-ins. If you're a skinny little guy and you can get into places, well, then you could probably work on that kind of stuff. It just depends on what you want to do in the industry. Fixing things, there's something about it. I'm sure everybody in here, I love the puzzle. I love troubleshooting. Some of the most difficult moments that we run into when we're working on things and you're just getting really frustrated and you can't figure it out. Some of those calls that in the end, they always turn out to be the best ones, because when you reflect on what you ended up doing to solve the problem, it's very rewarding to know that it was you that fixed that and you got it operational. You know, the interesting thing about this industry, there's so many different places you could work. Like I once had a person that reached out to me because he was deaf. Okay. And he wanted to know a great place, like if he could get into the industry, if it was just completely impossible. And I'm like, no, it's not impossible. You just got to find the right place to work. Right. And, you know, so there's something for everybody. You know, like I really think that an untapped thing in this industry, and I think it could help a lot of people, is like functioning autistic people. I think that a lot of us trade workers, technical workers, service technicians are slightly on the spectrum in one way or another. But I mean, you could even have people that are like, as long as they're functioning and they can somewhat communicate, like they would have a place in this industry too. Maybe depending on their communication levels, they may or may not be working in front of customers. But I mean, there's a place for everybody here. And it really is awesome in this industry. So let's read through the chat, see what I'm missing. And again, I know there's a lot of stuff that I'm missing in the chat right now. Again, feel free to shoot me an email, hvacrvideos@gmail.com. Okay. Reading through here. Name one industry that doesn't use HVAC, or name one industry that isn't in HVAC one way or another. Like an HVAC technician needs to know quite a bit about the electrical side. So I'm not saying that I'm an electrician. I'm not saying that I can go be an electrician tomorrow, but I know quite a bit about electrical, right? And sizing components, sizing wires, breaker sizes, like that kind of stuff. Plumbing. There's a lot of stuff that I deal with that is technically a plumber's job. I'm running gas pipe. I'm sizing gas pipe, making sure that it's not undersized because of the length that we're running. You know, we're sizing duct work. We're doing water lines, drain lines. Like there's so many different aspects. You need to get into the framing side, right? Are you a framer? I mean, you're working with normal construction work. Well, we sometimes have to do that in HVAC too, right? We are framing up some register supports, or we're fixing some stuff in the attic. Like there's so many different sides of this industry that encompass other trades that we as HVACR service technicians have to do. Low voltage technicians that are working on communication wiring and stuff like that. We do that in HVAC too. That's an electrician's job in some industries. We have to know a little bit about a lot in this industry. Thank you very much for that super chat. Jepper I think is your name. I really do appreciate that. That's really awesome. Thank you. People that are putting these super chats in here, I'm so beyond thankful for that. I really do appreciate it. I do have to say that you don't have to do that, but I very greatly appreciate it. Okay. So thank you very much. That is very kind of you. Let me see what else we got going on in here. MIJVS Refrigeration. Yes, that is my service company. What inspired me to start my own HVAC business, and do I see as the biggest opportunity in the industry right now? You want to go out on your own in 2025. So what inspired me to start my company? I did not start my company. I'm second generation. I've taken it over from my father. My father still has, a little bit of, he's still in the industry a little bit, but I always joke around and say he has 3 feet out the door. Right. But learned a lot from my dad, and have since partnered with him, took over the business, and, and I wouldn't even say completely took it over. Right. Cause he's still in here a little bit, but yeah, I didn't start it. Okay. He started it. But I'm going to say something. I know there's a lot of people out there, and don't take this the wrong way, but a lot of people just think like, I need to start my own business and move on. Okay. Understand something. My personal advice, if I had to do it all over again, I would have gone to business school. I would have learned how to properly run a business. I would have gone to some communication classes. I would have learned a lot more about accounting. All of that before I even considered starting a business. Just because you're a pretty good technician does not mean that you're going to be a successful business owner. Okay. The market right now is pretty ruthless. It really is. There's place for everybody in this industry, but you have to understand, if you want to join this industry right now, and then all of a sudden you're going to send me a bunch of emails asking me how to get customers and how to stay busy during the slow time, like, that's the kind of stuff you really need to figure out before you start your business. Okay. In my opinion, but maybe I'm completely wrong. I'm more of a person that I'm just sick of winging it. And I really wish I would have known more before I really dove headfirst into the business side of things. You send me out to go fix something, I'll get it fixed, but dealing with the politics and the business side of things is a whole nother animal. I highly suggest that you take some business classes and really brush up on your accounting skills, understanding how to properly operate a business. Figure that stuff out before you just dive headfirst in. Okay. That's my 2 cents on that matter. Let's see what else we got going on in the chat. How long does it take to become an HVACR service technician? In a perfect world, about a year or 2 of education and apprenticeship in between, somewhere in there, working with the company, shadowing people. Within a year or 2, you more than likely, if you are an intuitive person, a mechanically inclined person, you'll be doing pretty well. But you have to understand that new people coming into this industry are not going to be making $100,000, $120,000, $150,000 a year right away. That's going to take many years to get to that point. Sometimes more, it just depends. But that's going to take a long time to get to that point, right? You got to learn, you got to work your way through everything. And I don't want to turn people away. This is a great industry. It's just, I want to be honest, because if you go to the trade schools and you go sign up for a private school, trade school, whatever, they're going to fill your head with so much crap, some of it good, some of it bad. Okay. They're going to tell you that, you're going to make this much money. They're going to make you, especially the private ones. The private ones do a really good job of inflating what technicians are going to make on an hourly basis, guaranteeing them that they're going to be working for the rest of their life, like all this different stuff. And don't get me wrong, this is a good industry. And if you are a good technician, you're going to be employed for life. But the trade schools, especially the private ones, they do pretty bad at filling people's heads full of stuff that's not quite the truth. Okay. Because those trade schools, they need graduation numbers. They need to get people through the program as fast as possible. you know, the whole racket of the trade schools. If you want to get into that, let me go off on a tangent right now. So the private trade schools, even the public ones, okay, oftentimes if in you know, there's a lot more details, but I'm just giving some frustrating points. Oftentimes, if I'm sorry about that, if they take what do you want to call it? Government money to help subsidize people's educations. A lot of these companies will, okay, they'll offer the students like, hey, there's a government program that'll subsidize your education or give you a discount on your education. And then they'll let you use student loans to pay for it and stuff like that. And in order for them to be eligible for a lot of those programs, for those schools to be able to accept the student loans and, you know, things like that, they have to have a graduation numbers that meet whatever criteria the government sets for them. And they have to have placement numbers. So they have, not only do they have to have, you know, a high graduation rate from that school, but then on top of that, they have to have a high placement rate, right? So they get you through the program in 18 months or however, sometimes faster, right? And then they say, we'll get you a job, and they get you your first job and they've satisfied their requirement. Okay. But they didn't get you a good job, right? And that student really didn't learn anything. But once that student leaves that school and gets his first job, maybe a second job, they could care less about that student. Now, I'm not saying every school is like this, but they do this because it's a perpetual game of constantly getting new students in, so that way they can continue their school. And in reality, again, I'm kind of generalizing these schools. In reality, some of these schools, not all of them, but some of these schools, they shouldn't even be schools in general at all. Okay. They really have no business. What, like, and here's the thing that I don't understand. What school can truly teach a student in 18 months everything they need to know to be an HVACR service technician? I mean, that's a stretch. That's a real stretch. And then think about the programs that are faster than that or shorter than that. Like, there's just no way. But, you know, some of these schools now, what they are, their logic is that they're just going to give them fundamentals, and then the business they're going to go work for is going to continue their training. It didn't used to be that way. It used to be that when you left school, you were a pretty educated person, right? You'd start as an apprentice and work your way up. But some of the people that are leaving these schools now, it's kind of a bummer, you know, because they're being lied. So let's see what else. Anyone can do HVAC, but not everyone should. That's a good point. Good point. So, okay, going to read through a couple more things. So I have a question for you in the chat and people that are watching right now. So let's say, hypothetically, whatever. I want to know what you would do. I have a customer that has a beer walk-in that had electric defrost. It was a low temp coil. Well, it wasn't low temp. It was medium temp electric defrost. Beer walk-ins, designers and engineers love to design beer walk-ins with electric defrost, which in my opinion is one of the dumbest things they can do. Okay. But they put this electric defrost, and the logic is that they want to get that box temp as close to 32 degrees, but not below 32 as possible, so that restaurant or that bar can have the coldest beer in town, right? But the irony is that most restaurants keep other things in their beer walk, and they keep dairy products, they keep liquids, other liquids, they keep waters, they keep all kinds of things. So they can't be getting it down to 32 degrees. So they still maintain 38, 39 degrees. So I had a beer walk in today, and I was installing new equipment in there, and it had electric defrost. And I'm sitting here looking at this brand new equipment that the customer ordered. It's their equipment. They ordered it. I had nothing to do with it. I just told them the equipment was leaking, gave them a price to repair it. They chose to replace the equipment. They ordered their own equipment, shipped it out, and they send it to me. I look at it. I'm like, this is electric defrost. Shouldn't be electric defrost. This is just dumb. And I bypassed all the defrost heaters, made it look nice, and set it up as an air defrost system. Okay. So 4 defrosts a day, 15 minutes a day, set it for 36 degree box temp, 3 degree differential, and let it run. Now I'm asking you in the chat, would you have done the same, or would you have left the electric defrost because that's what the customer paid for? The reason, let me give you some more in-depth insight into this. The thing is that this is a low-end manufacturer. This isn't like an intelligent unit. Okay. This is a low-end manufacturer, and the electric defrost is actually a low temp coil. So knowing what I know, the limit switches in that coil are looking for around 20-degree coil temp before it turns on the evaporator fan motors, I'm running a beer walk and maintaining 37 degrees box temp. It's very rare, and it's going to take a long time for that coil to get down below 20 or 20-ish to turn the evaporator fan motors on. So that's one strike against it. And then all the complication of having defrost heaters and all that stuff, I just bypassed it and took it out. Benjamin says, ask the customer. Great question. Yeah, ask the customers, see what they want. Mike B says he would have done the same thing as me. Exactly, Will Speed. Great point. Will Speed said, just because they paid for it doesn't mean it's properly selected. That's 100% true. When these customers buy their own equipment, they oftentimes will use a distributor. They'll find a distributor that'll sell direct to the customer, which, mind you, none of my distributors are supposed to sell to the customers, but they do. So, but yeah, they just used a distributor, and the distributor just ordered just whatever they ordered, and this is what they shipped. But yeah, no, I removed the electric defrost. Now I still left the heaters in there, but I just unwired everything, zip tied up all the extra wires, rewired the coil, set it up for air defrost, and called it a day. What's the story of the compressor on the desk? That's one of many. It's a piece to get you to ask questions. It's just a conversation piece. I like to cut up compressors to try to figure out why they failed. It started years ago when we would change compressors, and then all of a sudden it's like, why did this thing fail? We'd constantly be changing them. So I started cutting them open to try to figure it out. Like, what happened to this compressor? So I've got actually two more of them sitting in my garage that were in here. My backdrop behind me just changed. So I'm kind of rotating things around. But yeah, that's just a scroll compressor that I cut up, and I use it as a display piece to show my employees or make videos out of it. That was in a video. I don't remember which video it was, but yeah, I like to cut them up just to do it. So, and then I'll just use them and throw them in the back. Let them know my concerns and have them make the choice. Yep. Okay, reading through the chat right now. Hello to everybody that's coming in here. Welcome to the stream. Okay, a couple more things. All right, let's talk about aftermarket parts. I've been an advocate for OEM parts as much as possible for a very long time, okay? But there is times that I consider using aftermarket parts. So I had a video recently. The title was, Sometimes Aftermarket Options Are Needed. And it was an exhaust fan that was a direct drive motor. It wasn't belt driven. The OEM motor was nowhere available nearby. They needed the exhaust fan ASAP. And so I had to use an aftermarket motor to get it up and running. Now I would have preferred to go back in with the OEM motor because it's just easier to install. As a business owner, the more aftermarket parts we use, the more of a possibility something is going to be improperly selected. It's very easy to assume. Okay, so for instance, when you go to a supply house and you say, here, I need a replacement motor, and you'll put the motor on the counter, the supply house guys will look at the motor, and they'll typically look at like 2 or 3 things. They'll look at the motor horsepower, they'll look at the motor speed, they'll look at the motor voltage, and they'll look at the motor frame. But something that they oftentimes forget to look at is the operating current. Okay, now mind you, the new motor is going to operate within a certain envelope, and it may or may not be the exact same as the motor you're replacing. So oftentimes when I go get an aftermarket motor, I'll look at that aftermarket motor and I'll say, hey, you know what? No, this one, the operating run load amps are an amp less than the motor that I had. What are the odds that this new motor is going to overamp, So when you do aftermarket components, or let's say, for instance, you're working on a package unit and you've got a frame on a motor. If you don't know what a frame is, so on a motor, oftentimes they will have a frame FR, and it'll be like 56 frame, right? 48 frame, 56 HZ frame or something, right? It's going to be the mounting plate. It's going to be the shaft size. It's going to be the what type of motor it is and how it's mounted to the equipment. So, you might have a 56 frame motor, but it's a 56 YZ. Okay. So that means it has an 1 1/8" shaft instead of a 5/8 shaft or something, right? So there's so many different complexities that you can't just trust a counter guy to say, yeah, this is the right motor. We need to check and double check. When it comes to getting aftermarket parts, it's really easy to overlook a very common thing when If you typically go with the OEM motor and it was installed and sized properly from the beginning, it's going to be an easy change out. So I tend to try to lean more on OEM just because it's easier and there's less headaches after the fact. But you know, sometimes I have to do it, and sometimes I do put in aftermarket. So on that particular video, I was working on an exhaust fan. I went and I got an aftermarket motor, but I laid out some really important things. It was an exhaust fan, and I explained what to measure, what to make sure that we got the wheel in the right place. So I'd highly encourage you to go check out the video if you haven't already. Let's see what else. Freon saying he's taking his guys to breakfast next week and spent about 500 in hand tools to give out. That's awesome. I'm assuming it's for the end of the year kind of stuff. That's really cool. We did for our guys, we have a minor league hockey team. They're a farm team for the LA Kings. They're called the Ontario Reign. And so my family and I, we like to go to the Ontario Reign games because it's a lot of fun. Oftentimes, if the Kings players are rehabbing, they'll be playing at Ontario. And so what we do, and we did last year for Christmas, we did the same thing this year, is we rented a suite and we invited all the employees, and then we invited a bunch of friends and family. And we basically had a suite watching the hockey game. We had it catered with food and drinks, and, you know, everybody had a good time. They brought their kids, and my kids were there, and it was just like good old time. So that's what we did for our Christmas party. In the past, we've done dinners and different things, and, you know, so it's cool. I enjoy it. It's nice to be able to hang out with the families. So in the video, sometimes aftermarket options are needed. Why did I not try to heat up the shaft to get it to or the hub to get it to expand, to get the shaft to slide off in the video, because I was trying to get the wheel off of the shaft of the motor? You know, that is something that I might do. It just depends. Look, here's the thing. Inherently, I'm lazy. Inherently, I don't know if that's the right word, but I'm lazy. Okay. I don't want to have to go down to my van to get tools that I don't necessarily need to. So oftentimes I'll try to make use with the tools that I have. In that situation, using a torch to heat up the hub of the wheel, that was a consideration in the back of my mind. But usually you have to heat it up so hot. A MAP gas torch typically won't do it. You need a oxyacetylene torch. I didn't want to bring all that stuff up there. I knew that with just some penetrating oil, some sandpaper, and a crescent wrench, I could get that wheel off, and I did. And, you know, and then I actually ended up using a piece of EMT to kind of hit it. And you guys, again, go watch the video. You'll see what I did. But Will's saying, wondering where we're going to go have lunch and beers this year. I'm assuming he's talking about at the symposium/AHR. I don't know, but I'm looking forward to. Hopefully you were talking about that. But if not, I want to go hang out. So we'll definitely do it there, Will, when I'm down. Okay. That's really awesome. Yeah. All right. Couple more things. Oh my gosh. I can't tell you in the video. Look, here's the thing. I do not say things correctly 99.9% of the time. I use incorrect industry phrases, terms, descriptors. I'm wrong. Okay. I'm human. And my goodness gracious, there must have been at least 10 comments criticizing me because I said that I used sandpaper when I was sanding the shaft of that motor. My goodness gracious. No, it's not sandpaper. It's emery cloth. Someone even said, what did they say? It's right here. I use carbundum tape. Okay. That's like grip tape. It's not grip tape. Okay. It was sandpaper. Okay. Good gosh, man. People, and oh my gosh, some people, they are so sticklers because they want to make sure that you really need to know the difference. Like, who cares? Okay. It's sandpaper, dude. It comes in a roll. I strip it, I sand it, and I move on. That just baffles me sometimes, the things that people get stuck on. Yeah, that's hilarious. So a couple weeks ago, I did a video where I had a Heatcraft intelligence system, or a Heatcraft QRC system, which is the quick response controller, and it had a bad circuit board. It was doing some really weird stuff. It's a pretty cool little video, but I had an opportunity to convert that system to the intelligence system, which is their new controls system. It's got a little dial on it and a digital display. It's super easy to set up, and they actually have a retrofit kit from QRC to intelligent. So I did that. And, you know, there's a lot of people that don't work in the industry. And so, you know, of course, I always get these questions. Why is there a circuit board installed in a walk-in freezer? I mean, they work fine. They have coatings on them and they do really good. I can't tell you if I've ever really had any real issues because of moisture, but that were obvious. I don't think so. But it is what it is. This equipment has the circuit boards. In a perfect world, I'd love to see the circuit boards and everything installed outside of the equipment, but in reality, that's not what we have. That's not what the customers want to pay for. So we deal with what we have. How important is it to shut off the system when the customer is loading product? Or is that just for convenience? That's actually very important. If you have a walk-in freezer and you're propping the door open because they're bringing product in and out for a half an hour, 45 minutes, it's best if they actually pump that system down or shut it off somehow. If you have to, a circuit breaker, a pump down switch, something like that. That's a really good idea, door switch or something, because if that equipment's not operating, then it gives you time to put stuff in and out, get it where it needs to go, and then it's not overworking itself and potentially freezing itself up. That's a really important thing, okay? Does Intelligent have a way for customers to initiate manual defrost or customer-initiated shutdown timer? Okay, so basically the person's asking me if the customer can have a button that they can just push to make the Intelligent system go into a defrost. Not super easily. Okay, it is possible. There is a defrost button on the in the control. You can go into the parameters, you can put it into defrost, you can log into the system and set it up that way. You can set it up for pump down timers. You can put a door switch on it so that way when the door switch opens, it pumps it down, that kind of a thing. But as far as can the customer just simply say, I want it to go into defrost, boom, move on. It's a little bit more work. They'd have to get into the Intelligent display, but it is possible. It is doable. In that video, I had a failed pressure transducer, or what I thought was a failed pressure transducer. But in reality, what I found was that I had gotten the Intelligent retrofit kit and I took all the parts out of the box and I threw them in my van and I forgot. And then when I had an opportunity to do an Intelligent upgrade, I grabbed those parts from my van, put it in there, and then I found that the pressure transducer wasn't working right. What I ended up, in the closing words, I addressed this. What I ended up finding was that actually that new Intelligent retrofit kit came with a pressure transducer. So in reality, the pressure transducer hadn't failed. It came with it, and I was supposed to change it out. But in the fine print, it also says that you can actually still make the Intelligent display work with the old pressure transducer. You just have to go in and offset it, essentially. You have to go tell it what type of pressure transducer it has, so that way it can offset it and read the accurate pressures. So in that video, why didn't I test the pressure transducer? Because I didn't think that I had to. It was just something that crossed my mind, and I found it out by the end, so it all worked out, right? Keith Peterson, again, thank you, bud. The comments that you're leaving and that super chat you left earlier, that's really awesome. All right, cool. Reading through the chat right now. Yeah, the whole cutting things open, I love doing that when I can. Been super busy, but I do, all right, let's see what else we got going on here. Yeah, Keith, thank you very much, man. You don't need to keep doing those, but that is really awesome, my good friend. So very, very awesome, and it is much appreciated, man. Don't blow your wad on a silly live stream like this, though. Okay, let's get to the chat, see what I'm missing. I got a couple more things. I want to go through the chat and kind of cover some more questions that you guys had. Have I ever seen a 24-volt transformer lose its amperage output? I don't quite know what you mean by that. That's very interesting. Let's see. I'm looking for capitalized questions here because we put them in caps lock as much as possible. I'm trying to find those to see which ones I've missed. If you guys have some more, throw them in the chat right now. We'll get to them. And once I get through these questions, the good guy says OEM, less thinking. That's exactly it. It's less thinking, less potential for things to go wrong, assuming that the manufacturer designed it correctly, right? Because there is some of those manufacturers that do a bad job. Let's read. Do I install Russell, and do I have issues with failed compressors? I have installed a lot of Russell equipment. Do I have issues with failed compressors? Not necessarily. Really, not necessarily. Failed compressors typically don't go bad. Well, there's one specific manufacturer that installs a lot of compressors, and their compressors genuinely suck. They're not in Russell equipment, though. Russell typically uses Copeland compressors. Copeland have a very good reliability built into them. They do a good job of designing their equipment, putting fail safes in the compressors so that way they don't fail. My opinion, right? But there's other manufacturers that do make crappy compressors. You guys can name them in the chat. You guys probably all know what they are. One of the more common failed compressors. But yeah, the good guy. Yeah, you said it, not me. So, but yeah, those things fail because you looked at them wrong. Okay. Will Speed says public service announcement to everyone going to AHR. What is the public service announcement? Have I ever had register and get your badges now? 100%. Yeah, for AHR, register and get your badges now, because when you go to AHR, there'll be a big ass line of everybody wanting to get their badges and you got to wait forever. So getting your badge ahead of time is much better. Hands down. Good advice there, Will. Have I ever had a compressor ground out right in front of me? Also, what is the most common reason for a compressor to ground out? Okay, so I don't think I've ever had a compressor ground out right in front of me. Maybe I have. Maybe I've had a terminal blow in front of me. My personal experience with compressors that ground out, what is the most common cause of that? I mean, there could be several causes, right? Acids in the refrigerant, in the oils that are eating away at the windings, that causes an issue. That's going to be one of the potential failure points. You could have a lack of lubrication causing the thing to overheat. May or may not cause it to ground out. You can have shrapnel in the system because of a flooded start or something like that that caused a problem, and blew a compressor scroll plate or something like that. Then the little pieces fell down and hit the windings and it arced and ground it out. I mean, there's a bunch of different causes that can cause a compressor to ground out, but it's safe to say that compressors don't just go bad. Something caused them to go bad. So you really need to dig into that root cause. Every one of my quotes that I give my customers when we have a failed compressor is, I have to change this compressor before I can tell you what killed it. I have no idea what killed it until we change it and start it up. So my quote is to replace the compressor. And then I need a couple hours after that to diagnose the system to try to figure out what caused it to go bad, right? It's not just a simple change the compressor and move on. You got to find out what killed it, okay? Depending on the type of equipment, on the refrigeration side, one of the big culprits that I see with compressors that causes them to go bad is people not understanding how to set pressure controls and not understanding what a compressor's operating envelope is, okay? So a compressor can operate within an envelope here and here. It's not supposed to operate above and it's not supposed to operate below. It's got to be in that window. And if it's out of that window, bad things can happen. And oftentimes our equipment does operate outside that envelope and it causes issues. I live in an environment where we can have some crazy hot summers where sometimes we can get 120 degrees outside. My equipment is not designed for 115 to 120 degrees. It's just not designed for it. So it's outside of the operating envelope anytime it gets above 110 degrees. 99.9% of the year, we're never above 110 degrees. It's those rare years where we get those really high temp things. And I mean, we've had summers where we literally just bought out the hoses and the misting devices from the hardware store. And we're just leaving that at every restaurant because it's just, we can't handle the heat waves sometimes. It's just crazy. So, that's going to be the cause, is compressors operating outside of their operating envelope. Pressure controls not being set right, that kind of stuff. Reading through the chat, deburring the pipe can trash a system. Not deburring the pipe. Yeah, 100%. Because if you're not deburring the pipe, then there's little particles floating around in the system. Those can get lodged in the compressor windings. They can cause problems. They can just wreak havoc on a system. Plug up expansion valves, head pressure control valves, all that. Replaced a C-Cop compressor, turned it on, 2 to 3 seconds, it locked up. No oil was in the new compressor. Good grief, that's a mess. Yeah, 100%. Had a brand new compressor blow out immediately on first startup and plug blew the charge. Manufacturing defect. Wow, that's crazy. Okay. Sweet. Well, it is about that time that I am going to wrap this up because I've been going for an hour. Thank you so very much for coming in here. Remember, check out my website, hvacrvideos.com. We got merchandise available on there. We got hats, beanies, stickers, a few sweatshirts. Now the sweatshirts and the t-shirts on the website, they're on, we're closing those out. We're basically slowly pushing those out of stock. We're not going to restock at this time t-shirts and sweatshirts. So get them while you can because they're slowly being phased out. We're going to stick to the hats, the stickers, the beanies, because those are what actually move. And we store all the merchandise at my house, and yeah, it's just getting out of hand how much crap we have here. So we're slowly phasing out the t-shirts and the sweatshirts and stuff. Another thing that people don't realize is we have women's t-shirts on the website too. They're women's cut with like a V cut, and they're different size and stuff. So check that out if your wife wants a t-shirt or whatever. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so very much. I'm going to cue up the outro music, and I'll probably bring the puppies in here in a few minutes. So appreciate you. And oh, you know what I need to, well, yeah, we'll talk about that later. We'll catch you guys later. Thank you so very much. And let's cue up the outro music.